Welcome to OOTO TV, the out-of-the-office investigation from our past into the future of personal health and psychophysiological actualization. I'm your host, Jagger.
And I'm Peaches. So glad you could join us. Today on OOTO TV, we are exploring a concept that's so fundamental to who we are, it's kind of hidden in plain sight. We're talking about the idea that our bodies aren't just chemical factories. They're these intricate, beautiful, bioelectric symphonies. We're going to investigate the science of our body's electrical nature and the revolutionary and, frankly, historically suppressed potential of healing through frequency. We'll be looking at how sound frequency modulation and our neurophysiological health are not just connected, they are in fact two sides of the very same coin.
You know, Jagger, this quote from the absolute visionary Nikola Tesla, it just perfectly sets the stage for everything we're about to get into. For a mind like his, this wasn't just some poetic, philosophical thought. Oh no, this was a deep, fundamental, scientific principle. It's this incredible suggestion that the answers to our biggest questions about health and healing, they might not be found only in a pill or with a surgeon's scalpel. They might be waiting for us in the invisible forces that animate our entire reality. Today, we're going to explore how this powerful idea is finally being proven, moving from the fringes right into the heart of modern medicine.
Absolutely. And we've laid out our investigation to tell this incredible story in 5 distinct parts. So here's the roadmap. First, we're going to establish the foundation, what we're calling the body's hidden electricity. Then, we'll dig into the history and uncover the reasons why this became a science sidelined for the better part of a century. After that, get ready for its triumphant modern comeback in the resonance revolution. From there, we'll look at the absolutely stunning mechanics of sound as cellular medicine. And finally, we'll explore both the challenges and the immense, incredible promise of what we're calling our vibrational future.
Exactly, Jagger. So let's kick things off with a fact that is so central to all of modern medicine, yet we rarely even stop to think about what it means. The simple idea that life is electric is not some new age concept. It is literally the basis of how we detect life itself. Think about it. In any hospital anywhere in the world, what is the first thing doctors look for to confirm a person is alive? They hook them up to an EEG to read brainwaves or an ECG for the heart. What are they looking for? An electrical signature. Because without that electricity, there is no life. It's that simple.
That's such a crucial point, Peaches. Electricity is literally the language of our nervous system. Every single thing you and I experience, the light entering our eyes, the sound waves vibrating our eardrums, the feeling of touch on our skin, all of it is instantly translated into electrical impulses so our brain can figure out what's going on. There was this jaw-dropping demonstration of this back in the 1960s by a Yale neurophysiologist, a Dr. Jose Delgado. You gotta hear this. He stood in a bullfighting ring with an enraged bull charging right at him, and with just the press of a button on a tiny remote, he sent an electrical signal to a small electrode in the bull's brain, and the animal just screeched to a halt, feet away from him. It's this stark, almost scary illustration of just how profoundly our physical actions are governed by these invisible electrical signals.
And this understanding, it didn't just appear out of thin air, right? It's really the culmination of centuries of scientific curiosity. You can trace this golden thread of thought all the way back to the 15th century, with the brilliant scientist Paracelsus talking about an organizing entity in all living things. Fast forward a couple hundred years, and Sir Isaac Newton himself was theorizing about a cosmic ether of electromagnetic fields filling the universe. Then in the 18th century, you have Franz Mesmer, who, he was controversial, but he described animal magnetism as this vital force connecting all life. This long historical pursuit finally hit its scientific peak in the 20th century with the meticulous, dedicated work of Professor Harold Saxton Burr at Yale, who spent 30 years of his life actually measuring this phenomenon. Right, and Burr actually gave his discovery a name. He called it the life field. And the best way to get your head around this concept is with a really simple analogy. Imagine you sprinkle some iron filings on a piece of paper, and you hold a magnet underneath it. Instantly, those filings leap into a structured pattern, right? They reveal the invisible magnetic field. Well, Burr argued that the life field acts as a similar, unseen electromagnetic blueprint for all living things. It's the organizing principle, the instruction manual that guides our cells, telling them where to go and what to become. It's what prevents our physical bodies from just descending into total biological chaos. It's the ghost in the machine, you might say.
And this, Jagger, this is where the theory just leaps from the laboratory into the realm of miraculous, unbelievable potential. A brilliant orthopedic surgeon named Dr. Robert Becker took Burr's research and just ran with it. He was obsessed with regeneration. I mean, he studied salamanders, these incredible creatures that can regrow entire limbs, and he found their secret. He measured what he called the current of injury. So when a salamander loses a leg, the voltage at the stump dramatically shifts from positive to negative. And that powerful negative charge is the bioelectric signal that basically screams, regrow here. In animals that can't regenerate, like us, that current just fizzles out. So Becker asked this revolutionary question, what if I could mimic that signal? He applied a tiny negative current to the amputated limbs of rats, and Jagger, it worked. He induced partial limb regrowth in an animal that does not naturally do that. This was real-world science that honestly felt like it was straight out of a movie.
Okay, wait a second, Peaches. That is absolutely astonishing. Limb regeneration through electricity. So that brings up the obvious multi-billion-dollar question, doesn't it? If this science was so groundbreaking, why isn't bioelectric regeneration a standard procedure in every single hospital today? Why did this entire field of study get shoved into the shadows? Well, this brings us to a crucial and, frankly, a pretty tragic turning point in medical history that totally sidelined this science and damaged its reputation for nearly 100 years. Peaches, the event was the 1910 Flexner Report. And look, on the surface, its goal was admirable. It was all about elevating medicine, standardizing education, and rooting it in hard science. But the model it adopted was this very rigid, German-influenced biochemical view of the body as just a collection of parts. It was a nuts and bolts approach that completely favored pharmaceuticals, tangible chemicals you could isolate and, more importantly, patent. And as a result, it effectively declared war on anything that didn't fit into that neat little box, pushing these promising fields like electromedicine and even nutritional science to the absolute fringes, dismissing them as unscientific quackery.
Well, to be fair though, Peaches, the medical landscape back then was kind of the Wild West. There was a genuine need for a serious cleanup. You had charlatans at carnivals selling snake oil. You had hucksters marketing these crazy devices like electric belts for the weak man, claiming they could cure everything from baldness to impotence. It was dangerous stuff, preying on desperate people. So while the Flexner Report's impact was arguably a case of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, that initial impulse to get rid of fraudulent and harmful treatments was completely understandable.
Oh, it was understandable, but it was also driven by immense financial and institutional power. You had the Carnegie Foundation and John D. Rockefeller throwing their colossal weight and money behind this report. And that act didn't just clean up medicine, it fundamentally reshaped it, cementing the pharmaceutical industry as the bedrock of modern healthcare. And this created a powerful and really enduring mindset. If you can see a chemical, hold it in your hand, measure it, then it's real medicine. But these invisible fields of energy, they were relegated to the realm of fantasy. It reminds me of this story about an oncologist in the 1980s who, when a patient told him she was on a special anti-cancer diet, just laughed and said, "That's a shame, she should enjoy her food, it won't make a bit of difference." That perfectly captures the purely chemical dogma that took hold for the next century. And that very dogma led to a truly staggering, decades-long investment in that single paradigm. Since President Nixon signed the National Cancer Act back in 1971, launching the so-called war on cancer, over $100 billion has been spent on research. And that research has been almost exclusively focused on pharmaceutical, surgical, and radiation-based solutions. And yet, despite that massive investment, the World Health Organization projects that by 2030, we'll be facing 23.6 million new cancer cases every year worldwide. The paradigm we invested so heavily in, it's not winning the war. And that stark reality is precisely why we're now seeing this powerful rediscovery of these sidelined bioelectric approaches. Yes, this is the comeback story. This is what we're calling the resonance revolution. We are now seeing a new generation of pioneers, and they're armed with rigorous 21st century data, and they are vindicating this lost science. They are proving with modern tools that those early researchers like Burr and Becker were absolutely on to something profound. So Jagger, this brings us to a really pivotal point in our investigation, and we just have to ask, how can sound frequency modulation and our neural physiological health actually affect our mental and physical well-being in a way we can actually measure?
That is the essential question, isn't it? And a fantastic case study to explore it is a modern device called AlphaStim. It's a form of what's called cranial electrotherapy stimulation, or CES.
And the central question it's trying to answer is right there for everyone to see. Can a tiny, almost imperceptible electrical current delivered simply through clips on your earlobes provide better and safer relief for these debilitating conditions like anxiety, depression, and insomnia than the powerful pharmaceuticals that are the current standard of care?
Peaches, Jagger, the data is it's remarkable. In placebo-controlled, double-blind studies, the absolute gold standard of medical research, a staggering 83% of alpha-stim users reported a 50% or greater reduction in their anxiety levels. Let me put that in context for everyone listening. There is no pharmaceutical drug study for anxiety that even comes close to that level of effectiveness. The results are so consistently powerful that the Department of Defense and the VA now use it extensively to treat veterans suffering from the brutal effects of PTSD, anxiety, and insomnia. It's just a stunning, modern validation of everything we've been talking about.
You're listening to OOTT, with research by author Paul Bulow.
But Peaches, let me play devil's advocate for a second, because this is what any good scientist would ask. How can we be so certain this isn't just an incredibly powerful placebo effect? The mind is a powerful thing. If people believe some futuristic electrical device is helping them, maybe that belief itself is the active ingredient. That's the perfect question, and it's exactly why the rigor of the study design is so critical. These are double-blind, placebo-controlled trials, okay? So a group of researchers is given a batch of these devices. Half of them are fully functional, the other half have been secretly fitted with a non-conductive part. They look the same, they feel the same, they even beep, but they deliver zero current. Now, here's the key. Neither the patient getting the treatment nor the doctor giving it has any idea who has a real device and who has a sham one until the study is over and the code is broken. This method completely removes bias, and it proves beyond a shadow of a doubt that the effect is real, it's physiological, and it is not just in the patient's head.
And then, Jagger, you have to look at the safety profile. The contrast is just breathtaking. With alpha-stim, the side effects are incredibly rare and so mild. A slight headache and maybe 1 out of 1,000 users, or minor skin irritation from the clips. Okay, now compare that to the standard laundry list of side effects for common antidepressants. Nausea, insomnia, weight gain, sexual dysfunction, heart palpitations, and even the terrifying risk of increased suicidal thoughts, especially in young adults. There's this story from our source material about pharmaceutical sales reps at big medical conferences who will quietly sneak over to the alpha-stim booth to use the device for their own stress because they refuse to take the very drugs they are paid to sell. That single image tells you everything you need to know.
Okay, the data is compelling. I'm with you. It's clearly effective, and it's demonstrably safe. But that leads us to the next logical question, and it's the one everyone listening is probably thinking right now. So, what are the key elements for this process of using sound and frequency to support our health? How does it actually work on a biological level? How can a tiny current clipped to your ears possibly change your brain chemistry and get rid of deep-seated anxiety?
The answer is just this beautiful principle of physics, resonance. The classic example everyone uses is tuning forks. So if you have 2 forks tuned to the exact same note, say middle C, and you strike one of them, the other one, sitting all the way across the room, will start to hum. It'll start to vibrate without anything touching it. They're in resonance. Well, our cells and the millions of receptors on their surfaces, they're exactly the same. They each have natural, healthy, resonant frequencies. Alpha-stim doesn't force one signal on the body. Instead, it offers what's been described as a buffet of frequencies. The cells just take what they need to restore their natural, healthy vibration, and they ignore the rest. It's this elegant, communicative process, not a brute force one, which is why there are basically no negative side effects.
And this ties directly into a process that's really well understood called brainwave entrainment. Our brains operate at different frequencies, right? And those are associated with different states of consciousness. You've got delta waves for deep restorative sleep, theta for meditation. Alpha is that calm, creative flow state everyone talks about. And beta is our normal, alert, problem-solving state. Well, it turns out that external rhythmic stimuli, like sound or a gentle electrical pulse, can actually guide the brain into a desired frequency state. Brain mapping studies show this perfectly with alpha-stim. After just a 20-minute session, subjects show a significant increase in those calming alpha waves and a decrease in the drowsy delta waves. This creates that really unique state users talk about, feeling simultaneously more alert and more relaxed.
Okay, let's look at an even more specific and honestly revolutionary example. The Therabionic device. It's being used for these really hard-to-treat cancers, like advanced liver cancer, and it uses the same principle of resonance with just breathtaking precision. So first, using biofeedback, scientists identify the exact, unique modulation frequency of a patient's specific cancer cells. Then, the patient just uses this small, lollipop mouthpiece that emits a very low-intensity radiofrequency field for an hour, 3 times a day.
That specific frequency resonates only with the cancer cells, disrupting their ability to divide and multiply. And the most incredible part, the healthy cells, which vibrate at a different frequency, are left completely unharmed. This shows that this kind of targeted frequency exposure creates a healthy environment for cellular growth and success, while disrupting only the unhealthy cells. It's like using a scalpel made of sound, compared to the sledgehammer of chemotherapy.
I have to admit, Peaches, that's the part that's hard to wrap my head around. How can an energy field that is less than 1,000th of the power of a cell phone have such a devastating effect on a tumor? It seems to defy logic.
Because it's the power of precision over brute power. It's resonance over force. Think about the famous collapse of the Tacoma Narrows Bridge back in 1940. This massive steel structure wasn't destroyed by a hurricane. It was brought down by a steady 40-mile-per-hour wind that just happened to perfectly match the bridge's natural resonant frequency. That small, persistent, precisely matched force amplified itself until the bridge literally tore itself apart. It's the same principle. We also have the work of Dr. Liboff on ion cyclotron resonance, which proved that currents a millionth of an amp are all that's needed to signal bone cells to heal a fracture. From this, it's clear, exposure to the right sound frequency modulation is critical to our healthy mitochondrial and cellular replication.
You're listening to OOTO TV with research by author Paul Bulow.
So, we've seen the history, we've seen the modern undeniable data, and the elegant mechanisms behind how this works, which brings us to the final and most frustrating part of our investigation. If the science is this solid, why are these therapies still fighting for mainstream acceptance? Why isn't every doctor's office in the country equipped with these devices? Well, this reveals the systemic, institutional obstacles that are slowing down this new paradigm of medicine.
This timeline of the FDA's handling of these CES devices, it's honestly infuriating to look at. Back in 1978, these devices were lumped into a high-risk category and given a 3-year deadline for review. That deadline came and went, decades passed. In 2009, 31 years later, the government had to literally order the FDA to do the job it was supposed to have done in 1981. Then, in 2012, an FDA official was caught deliberately misleading an advisory panel, claiming a report showed CES caused seizures, when the report clearly stated the seizures happened before the patient ever used the device. It ultimately took 39 years for the FDA to even propose reclassification.
And when you contrast that 39-year delay with the approval process for a new drug, which is often fast-tracked in just 6 to 10 months, it raises some serious questions. It's really difficult not to consider the influence of the well-documented revolving door between the FDA and the pharmaceutical industry, where the people tasked with regulating these companies often end up taking high-paying executive jobs with them after leaving public service.
It all just points to a much deeper systemic problem. As one expert from our source material puts it, our entire medical system is still based on an obsolete 19th century nuts and bolts view of the body. We desperately need a paradigm shift, a move toward a field-driven electromagnetic understanding of health that actually incorporates modern physics. So Jagger, after everything we've looked at today, it all comes down to the ultimate question: can embracing sound frequency modulation to improve our neural and physiological health truly improve our human health? You know, having reviewed all of this evidence, from the early pioneers to the modern clinical trials, the answer seems to be a clear and resounding yes. The potential of this vibrational approach is just immense. It works by targeting the root energetic cause of a problem rather than just masking symptoms with chemicals. It's non-invasive, it has a safety profile that is basically unmatched, and it works by helping the body restore its own natural harmony. It really is a beautiful synthesis, bridging the gap between ancient healing wisdom and the cutting edge of modern physics.
I couldn't agree more, Jagger. And that leads to 2 final, powerful takeaways from all this. The growing body of research we're seeing on sound frequency modulation and neurophysiological health suggests that sound may be good for health in ways we are only now beginning to quantify. And because it works by restoring cellular harmony at the most fundamental level, it's pretty clear that this approach can be linked to preventing illness and increasing longevity, not just treating disease after it's already shown up.
So the really crucial idea we want to leave everyone with today is this question: if our bodies are not just machines built from parts, but are in fact these intricate symphonies of vibrating energy and information, are we really using the right instruments to maintain them? Or have we spent the last century trying to fix a complex orchestra with only a hammer and a wrench? It's a thought that could fundamentally change how we approach health, wellness, and the incredible potential that lies dormant in our own bodies.
A fascinating question to consider, and that's our investigation for today. Thank you for joining us on OTOT TV.